I'm here, guys, with Pastor Dave, and we just finished our main interview, but we have a couple bonus questions for you. So, Pastor Dave, I know we've talked about one particular story of somebody who you were able to lead to Christ, who came from a very intellectual, philosophical background. And so I want to take a few minutes and maybe just talk to the audience about what advice would you give? Because I think we're all going to come across people in our journey who, right out of the gate, are kind of at a little bit of a different angle when it comes to Christianity. One that goes like, well, it's not that I haven't thought about it, it's that I have thought about it, and I've come to the conclusion that I don't believe or that I can't get there. What advice would you give for somebody who's going to be trying to share Christ with somebody like that?
Well, I worked 15 years before I was a pastor, and I worked in software development 10 of those years. So I worked around a lot of people, and the best advice I ever heard was a pastor who said when he went into the Army, his uncle said to him, whatever you do, show yourself to be friendly and be the first one to initiate a friendship relationship, so when you're asked to do something you can't do, that they know it's because of your conviction, but you're a great guy, so to speak. And so, I used to travel for business and go to different cities for 3 to 6 months and work with people back at the office. And that was just, number one for me was to be the guy that was involved in whatever was going on. I would buy tickets for the Phillies games for the department and those kinds of things. The second thing then is to have conversations and recognize that this is a time thing. This is not sit down with somebody on a park bench, give them the gospel in 5 minutes, and then make a decision. I don't really want that kind of a conversation, because if they say no, where do I go from there? So I always say, end every conversation with a comma. It's not over. This conversation can go on. And some conversations have been formal, where we've met for dinner. A woman was coming to church and her husband decided to try it out. He and I met for dinner at a diner in New Jersey every Monday for months. And then one day he just decided to trust Christ. And there's a lot of these stories in my life where my evangelism has been mostly conversations and over a long time. And I can't point to any one thing that was the moment that, or else I could say that up front and we could get it over with. But it's always, answering the questions, appreciating their point of view, giving, credence to what they're saying makes sense, and I understand that, and telling them I don't know when I don't know, and seeking to find the answer, and even revealing that that's a gap in my knowledge. I just don't have an answer to that. But knowing that God's doing a work in a way way beyond, that the Holy Spirit is with me in this, and it's not me. Sometimes, that morning I will have read something, and that evening the person says, hey, what about this? And it's like I just read it that morning, and I sound smarter than I really am, because God's prepared me for that. And so just being faithful, being a friend, being involved. Since we've moved back to Screen Lake, I'm on the Chamber of Commerce now, and we've been involved in trying to do community things. Whenever there's a fundraiser, I show up and represent the church. I'm trying to actually set the congregation up to enter into people's lives, and being a member of Mountainside is not a liability. It's actually something that gives them credibility.
Sure.
And so just take a long view.
Yeah. I like something you said about being willing to admit you don't have the answer. Because I feel like sometimes when you get into a conversation with somebody who is very smart, somebody who has invested a lot of time in thinking through life, the temptation is to want to go toe for toe with answers. And I think that maybe we do ourselves a disservice sometimes by doing that, because what we end up doing is giving a lesser answer or a weaker answer in the name of, well, I have to answer, versus just saying, I don't know. I need to look into that more. And I think that simple phrase communicates to somebody who is a thinker and who's working through that you're willing to do the same.
Right. I watched a video on YouTube with D.A. Carson and Rebecca McLaughlin, and it was on the subject of kind of like being afraid to share the gospel. And I thought, here are two people that are two of the smartest people I've ever read, have most of the answers and can articulate them in such amazing and concise ways, and that they're expressing this fear. And so we all have this fear because we're exposing ourselves in ways that are uncomfortable. And that's the other thing we have to do. We just have to step up to the plate, but understand that we're not by ourselves, that the Holy Spirit is there to accompany us, and He's doing a work that's way beyond what we're doing. And so it may not go well. My brother tells the story of being two fathers on a bench with watching their boys play high school basketball, and 17 years later, the man comes to him and says, I'm in trouble, I need help, and I know that you're the guy that can help me. You know, that would be 2037 from right now.
One of the things I so appreciated about reading Rebecca McLaughlin's book is how highly she speaks of other scientists and professionals who are not believers. You know, right. She doesn't speak less of them because they have come to a different conclusion than her. Obviously, she wishes they would, but she's very complimentary of their. Yeah, they're smart. Yes. You know, they are. It's not. They're not as smart.
Well, in my early life, my late teens, I became a little bit disillusioned with Christianity. I just felt everything that I was hearing was cliches. And I discovered Francis Schaeffer. I went to a bookstore and bought a book on Genesis. Came home and read it. It was Genesis in Space and Time. And after the first page, I'm like, who is this man? And I've read everything he's written 3 times. He was known for his gentle apologetics. You know, he listened. He was kind. He gave, you know, credibility where there was credibility. And you know, he even challenged me in that when you're in a revolving door, I guess some of them still exist, but the idea that when your eyes meet another person on the bus, walking down the street, what do you communicate about their worth as a person created in the image of God? You know, the waiter, the waitress, the person who's waiting on you at the register. And that's profound, that you know, we respect everybody, that we're known by our kindness, by our love, by our compassion, by our patience. All of those things God describes Himself as, and we're not always known. You know, we get a lot of bad press, and sometimes we deserve it.